They're back, baby! Recently, it has been announced that the beloved sci-fi comedy Futurama will be premiering new episodes on Hulu. Created by Matt Groening and developed by David X. Cohen, Futurama premiered in 1999 and had an initial run of 4 seasons until its cancellation in 2003. However, after getting high ratings during syndication on Adult Swim and strong DVD sales, Futurama was resurrected by Comedy Central for 4 direct-to-DVD movies, starting with Bender's big score in 2007. Although its 4th and final film, Into the Wild Green Yonder, was also designed to function as a possible ending for the series, sales for the movie proved strong enough for Comedy Central to give the show a proper revival beginning in 2010. After a while, chances of renewal looked uncertain, so Season 6 episode Overclockwise was written to function as an open-ended series finale. But the show was renewed, and we got one more season of Futurama, culminating in the touching and widely beloved finale episode, Meanwhile. So that means that Futurama has had not 1, not 2, not even 3, but 4 final episodes. Wow, that has got to be some kind of record. But in February 2022, it was announced that Hulu would be picking up the show for a new 20-episode season. Now, I'm a huge Futurama fan. Throughout the years, this show has given us not only hysterical and intelligent jokes, and a surprising number of lovable memes, but also tender character moments that have touched the hearts of fans worldwide. So of course, when I found out that it was being revived for another season, I immediately felt nervous? Hello everyone, my name is Maxwell and this is Never the End. Today, we're going to be talking about the future of Futurama. So yes, I was nervous. And it wasn't because beloved voice actor John DiMaggio almost didn't reprise his role as the incorrigible Bender, but because a Futurama return meant the possibility of this beloved show suffering a fate worse than death. A fate that had already befallen my personal favorite show ever, The Simpsons. Being the previous brainchild of Matt Groening, The Simpsons can kind of be viewed as an older sibling to Futurama. And while many fans of both series consider Futurama to be the superior show, The Simpsons was, is, and always will be the TV show closest to my heart. So this next bit is going to get a little personal for a minute, but here goes. I was introduced to The Simpsons at a very young age by my father, and I fell in love with it right away. Every Sunday night at 8 o'clock sharp, I would call out to my younger brothers, and we would run to the couch to watch this week's antics of America's favorite family. I howled with laughter at their jokes, and I shared the tender moments of the Simpsons family. I experienced every dough, ay caramba, and ha-ha. And God knows, when I was 8, I wanted to be Bart Simpson. He was the cool, smart-mouthed, skateboarding prankster I aspired to be, but, of course, never was. I was enamored. I watched the show, I played the games, I read the comics, and I wish that me and my family could live in the ambiguously located town of Springfield too. There was even a running gag in my family that everything Max knows he learned from The Simpsons, because I could seemingly relate anything from landmarks to presidents to any abstract concept to something I'd seen in an episode. Things change fast when you're growing up, but for me, The Simpsons was always a constant. When I was a kid, I wished The Simpsons would never end. But that's why they say be careful what you wish for. The Simpsons never did end. At the time of this recording, The Simpsons is on its 33rd season, has released 718 episodes, and has been renewed for seasons 34 and 35. I think back to when I was 14. My friends and I biked to go see The Simpsons movie, which met and exceeded my every expectation. If the series had ended with its 2007 film, it would have been the perfect Simpsons send-off. But then, The Simpsons just kept going, and going, and going. Until one day, where I was sitting in my kitchen, eating breakfast, and watching the most recent episode of The Simpsons on my laptop. It had been years since my brothers and I had gathered together on the couch for Sunday nights. And as I was watching, I was struck with a realization, and I did something that I had never done before. I turned The Simpsons off. I came to the realization I wasn't watching The Simpsons because I enjoyed it. I was just watching it to watch it, because that's what I'd always done. And that's no reason to watch a show at all. And that was in 2012. Here we are in 2022, and I still love The Simpsons. But I haven't watched a new episode in 10 years.
Don't forget me.
Don't worry, Homer. You'll always be a part of me.
Which brings us to my fears about Futurama's latest revival. New episodes of this beloved Emmy-winning series sounds nice in theory, but I can't help feeling concerned that Futurama will follow into its elder siblings' footsteps. sliding from a show that was truly exceptional into mediocrity and then into something that's just so wholly unwatchable you almost forget what made it great in the first place. Okay, so I'm being a bit hyperbolic here. The lackluster new episodes could never ruin the good older episodes, but it is a bit disheartening to recommend a show to friends with a caveat, but only watch up to season 12 because after that, it's not worth it anymore. There are many shows that are cancelled before their time, which is disappointing, but there is some consolation knowing that those shows never went bad. There truly is an art to knowing when to bow out, and when it comes to great TV shows, I'd rather leave while I'm in love. Even before the new Hulu episodes premiere, there's already evidence that Futurama's time has passed. The Futurama movies had their ups and downs, but they were a lot of fun. However, the quality of the following revival seasons is, shall we say, a tad more inconsistent than its original run. The show had lost some of its writing staff, some satirical elements that once might have been more nuanced felt a bit too on the nose, and even though Leela came to reciprocate Fry's romantic feelings at the end of the fourth movie, the show seemed determined to keep romantic plot lines for both characters open, resulting in a weird on-again, off-again relationship for Futurama's favorite couple. This is of course not to say that Futurama wasn't worth reviving. It very much was, and although the quality of Comedy Central's Futurama wasn't as consistent as its original run on Fox, there were some absolute gems in the later seasons. And out of all 4 of the show's finales, the endings that Season 7's Meanwhile gave to Futurama fans is easily the best. Now, here we are 10 years later, and despite the ocean of adult animated programs we currently have, Futurama still stands out, and that's because it's hard to make a great and memorable show. It's rare to find a group of incredibly talented individuals who can come together to work at a certain place and time. It's a monumental task to capture this lightning in the bottle even once, and it's even more difficult to do it again after years have gone by. So, given the evidence, is Futurama following The Simpsons into decline inevitable? Well, I've actually got an idea I think could revitalize the show. I do believe it is important for shows to know when to end. But obviously that isn't going to happen here since one way or another, Futurama is coming back. So I say, if you can't let it go, then let it grow. If we're bringing back Futurama, we shouldn't just bring back our beloved Planet Express crew exactly the way that they were when we just left them. One of the saddest parts of The Simpsons in modern times is their struggle to remain relevant. The Simpsons are a creation that is so incredibly 90s, and that's what made it great. They were the perfect satirical mirror for the society of their age. But now, seeing those same characters who made jokes about dial-up internet having smartphones without having aged a day is jarring. Not to mention the use of increasingly sad retcons. Homer Simpson, who originally grew up in the 70s with a Disco Sucks bumper sticker on his car, has now been made into a hip-hopping 90s kid. Seriously, look at this. Remember what I said about how the new episodes can't retroactively make the old ones bad? That's still true, but man, I look at this and that does hurt me a little inside. It does. The reason for this tragic failure to adapt is because the world of The Simpsons employs what's called a floating timeline. The term floating timeline means that a story takes place in a continuous present. This is so that writers don't have to accommodate for characters aging and the family dynamic remains consistent. The floating timeline is the reason that Bart is still 10 years old, even though if he were allowed to age normally, he'd be in his 40s by now. It's a device used to keep characters young and stories fresh, but after so many years, employing a floating timeline and preventing characters from growing older actually has the opposite effect. Characters aren't allowed to grow or change, so situations they find themselves in repeat, and carry less weight each time.
This is the worst thing you've ever done.
You say that so much it's lost all meaning.
So, in order to keep Futurama interesting, we're going to get rid of the floating timeline. Or at least put it on hold for a little bit. The entire premise of Futurama is, what would be the funny reality of life 1,000 years from today? The show began in 1999 and takes place in the year 3000. And at least on paper, in the show, time moves forward concurrently with our world, as evidenced by the New Year's banner saying 3008 in Bender's big score. This means when the new season of the show premieres in 2023, the year for the Planet Express crew should be 3023. Fry was 25 when he first came to the future, and now he'll be 48. So instead of having him be the same age forever like Bart, I say, let him be 48. For the show's revival, I'd like to see all the characters in the next stage of their lives at the ages they logically should be. Where would all these characters be 2 decades after we first met them? Would the professor be a head in the jar? Maybe Leela stepped up to take over Planet Express? What would Hubert and Dwight be like as adults? Let's give Fry and Leela a couple of kids and see the challenges of raising children in the 31st century. Speaking of kids, what about Amy and Kif's children from Kif Gets Knocked Up a Notch? In this episode, Kif gives birth to tadpoles that he says will emerge as children from the water in 20 years. That episode aired in 2003, which means it's time for the little tykes to come up. Jokes about Amy's promiscuous and club-hopping lifestyle are kind of played out at this point. Watching her transition from party girl to a mom who may actively discourage those kind of behaviors in her own kids opens up new storytelling possibilities. Futurama's writing has always maintained a great balance of interpersonal drama and high-concept sci-fi, but keeping your characters the same age for 20 years actually limits the storytelling potential. Couples like Fry and Leela or Kif and Amy can only break up and get back together so many times before the drama becomes, well, stale. Allowing the premise of the show to evolve would create the opportunity for new, non-repetitive stories.
But that's not why people watch TV. Clever things make people feel stupid, and unexpected things make them feel scared.
Jokes aside, even though it's set in the 31st century, Futurama's satire has always been a reflection of the present. That is to say, the early 2000s and then the 2010s. As Futurama gets ready to join us in this bizarre reality of the 2020s, I think that allowing its status quo to develop naturally will better prepare them for the task of holding up the mirror of parody to a society that needs to laugh at itself to learn about itself. But what do you think? Do you want to see this new version of Futurama, or would you rather they stay the way that they always were? Or do you just think that Futurama will follow the decline of The Simpsons no matter what happens? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and remember, this is never the end. So I'll see you next time.